Did you miss us? Because we missed you. Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 5 of the Sports Advocate. I am Manistee News Advocate and Benzie County Record Patriot sports reporter Mitch Vosburg. Currently flying solo for the first half of the episode. Sports editor McLain Moberg will join us in the back half to talk the Super Bowl and a few other things. But let's not waste any time. Let's get to this week's guest. Alright, joining us now in our studio, which also serves as our conference room, is Onekama ski coach Curt Mathieu. Curt, happy Wednesday. Thank you for making the drive down here this early in the morning. How are we feeling today?
Great. I'm ready.
Great to have you on. So, Aleah, Blackmore, Braydon, Sorenson off to the state meet this year. If you can't just talk about their season and how it took for them to get here. I mean, huge accomplishments for both of them, right?
Yes, very much so. The region that we got thrown into this year, the one up north, is super tough. And state champions come out of that region every year for quite a few years. And for us to be able to go in there as a team on the boys' side and get fourth was huge. And even having problems, I think we had 4 racers go down, 1 DQ'd. We still pulled off a fourth. Well, then you have Braydon who lives this. I mean, this is what he studies. Summertime, he goes to Mount Hood for training. And Aleah, she's doing this USSS racing on weekends, and besides doing our stuff for high school. So, this is their life, and it definitely shows. They've come a long way, and they're doing awesome.
Sticking with Aleah and Braydon for a quick second. I understand there's a big difference between the athlete and the person. What kind of human beings are both those kids?
It's funny because we co-op with, I think it's 6 schools, and MHS being one of them. I don't really know these kids until we get them on the team. And Braydon's a junior, so we've had him for this is the 3rd year. But I kind of watched him in middle school. He was doing club racing, and so he'd be in the locker room and stuff. And he's funny, likes to play jokes on people. He's got a great sense of humor. But as they get older, you kind of start to see the change. And he was a kid that's, getting more serious. Mm-hmm. He's growing up, and that's pretty cool to see. Now, Aleah, I've known her dad for a number of years. I just met her, and she's local, Onekama, and they only live a couple miles from us, but I really don't know them because I don't work in the school system. And but she is just one of the nicest, most polite. Like with Braydon, he's always there to help other kids on the team. He's working with a lot of the other boys to get information for them, and then shares it and stuff. And Aleah she's so quiet and calm, goes out and does her thing, and doesn't want a whole lot of attention. That's the cool part is they go out there, they do it, then they're done.
So I'll be totally honest with you, Curt. Before I moved up here for this job, I had no clue skiing was an MHSAA sport. Mm-hmm. So I got to ask you, how in the world did you get into skiing in the first place?
My uncle used to drive a loader for my grandpa, and when we'd have really bad blizzards, he'd come to my parents' house and have to plow the road to get in, and he'd take the snow and make a big huge pile in the driveway, and then he'd make a ramp because he skied. And I think I was like 6 or 7, and my parents bought my brother and I skis, and my sisters, but my brother and I stuck it out. So we'd climb up the back of that snow pile and slide down, climb up, slide down. Well, across the lake was a ski area in Bear Lake called Bear Hills, and he was kind of a makeshift instructor there in the winter. And so he took us kids and taught us how to ski. And I think my first season pass at Crystal Mountain was like in 1972. And my uncle started the Bear Lake ski team through the school, through MHSAA. Same year that Onekama started there, and it was Dale Miller was their coach. So, Onekama was a big rivalry, so that's kind of how I got started, was just my uncle got us skiing. So, and then the racing part came when, my brother joined the ski team, and it was like, I'm 2.5 years younger. I was too young to, but as soon as I could, I did. And once I graduated, then I helped coach for 2 years after that till I got married. So, yeah.
Gotcha. So how do you stumble into taking a coaching job at Onekama now?
My daughter. So, my wife worked at Crystal Mountain when our daughter, God darn, she was probably 10, 11, something like that. And my son was a couple years older, but he was really into basketball. So my daughter, she lived at Crystal Mountain, and when she was able to be a manager, she joined the team to be a manager. I think that was in 6th grade, so she was into racing by the time she hit 9th grade. And Dale Miller called and said, hey, can you help? Doing on-hill stuff, gatekeeping, just the parent stuff. Well, it was evident that Dale was looking to maybe retire someday. And so he retired in 99, and we had 2 different coaches in 3 years. And then he came back for 3, and he just says, I can't do it anymore, but I want you to take over. And I said, I will, but only after my daughter graduates, because I've seen parents try to coach their kids before, and it doesn't always work so good. Sometimes it works great, and I thought, I love my daughter too much. As soon as he retired, my daughter graduated, her and I actually took it over. She helped me for, 3-4 years till she got married and started having kids. So, yeah, so it was Dale Miller's fault.
I love how you mentioned it's somebody's fault that you're coaching.
Yeah. Well, it's been wonderful. It makes winter go really fast because skiing, as all coaches know, it never ends all year long. So our season starts in June with planning the annual training trip to Colorado, and it's constant until after state. Then we have about a month of wrapping things up. So we get about a month or 2 months off, and then it starts all over again. So,
for me as a sports reporter, I understand football like the back of my hand. I know basketball, I know baseball, I understand track, I know wrestling. I don't know skiing to save my life, though. I went one time as an 8th grader, my legs kind of did a 180 split thing. I'm like, not going to do this again. So, exactly how does the sport of downhill skiing work? Like, how's it scored? Like, how does it work exactly?
Fastest score is 1 point. Low score wins. So, like this year, I know Braydon had a goal. We do this thing called World Cup points, and a perfect season is 1,000 points. So in that scoring, you want the highest, and he got 900. Unfortunately, he had one bad race, and so that put him at 900 points. We've had racers do 1,000 before, and it's been awesome. But when we do our conference races, fastest racer down the hill gets 1 point, second fastest gets 2. And so you take the 4 fastest kids on your team, boys, and then 4 fastest girls, and you score them. And they're scored individually. And we have a boys winner and a girls winner. So that's how you end up getting the team score, is 4 fastest. So when we have conference races, everybody races. When we go to invitationals, we are allowed 6 racers per slalom and 6 racers per giant slalom. So they can be different kids, but typically your fastest slalom racers are also your fastest giant slalom racers. So I always take the 4 fastest, they're in both events, and then I try to mix up the other 2. So
what exactly are the slalom events and the giant slalom events?
Slalom, the gates are like 10 to 12 meters apart. So like at Crystal Mountain, you can get 20 to 24 gates on a hill on a run. We just came back from Nubs at regionals, and I think they had 42. So their courses are twice as long as ours. And then giant slalom, they're 22 to 26 meters apart. And so you have a lot less gates. So you're going faster, but the offset is more, meaning you're going across the hill and trying to keep them at a little bit slower speed than just going straight down. And a lot of the new kids like giant slalom because it's less technical. But once the kids start getting it and understanding using their edges and stuff, you'd be surprised how many prefer slalom, because you can really win good at slalom because not many kids are good at it. And in Braydon, I mean, our whole boys team is just smashing the slalom. They're doing really good at it, so I'm real proud of them for that.
So outside of just the times, how else do you measure success as a coach for these kids?
Not being juvenile delinquents, just most of my kids are just nice kids, and I say I got a bunch of really good kids that just happen to really ski fast, and that's the way I look at it is, are you keeping up on your grades? Are you kind and polite? A lot of our kids, they've got extracurricular stuff that's revolved around their church and stuff. Don't come to practice. That's more important. That's life. This is just something, a little blip during it. And I hope you do good, but my goal isn't to win races. It's more to shape the kid. I don't know. It's even when we do this Colorado trip thing. This year we had a boy that had never flown before. So this was cool. He'd been out west, but camping with his parents. So he's the kid that's got to get us through the airport. He's the kid going in there and helping me get the rental car. He's the one reading the map to get us to the resort. We all know how to get there. We've been there before, but he hasn't. So that's his thing. That's what I'm after is when we're all done, I want these kids to be able to go to any ski area and go skiing and have a good time and not be intimidated and scared. So the racing, yeah, it's awesome. I'm happy for those kids, but it's also a little bit bigger than that, in my opinion. So,
all right. Well, now we get on to the one question that's highly controversial, but I gotta ask everybody this, Curt. You are no exception. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Pineapple
yes.
On the pizza?
Yes.
That is the best.
Thank you.
Pineapple and ham, maybe sprinkled with a little bacon. Maybe little chunks of bacon.
Thank you.
So.
When I was at CMU doing this sort of thing, I talked to so many athletes who despise pineapple on pizza. And I'm always curious when people's take because it's a fruit, but also tomatoes. Tomatoes are technically a fruit, so you have a fruit base right there. Yes. So it's I've always been curious for people's take on that.
Oh, that's way too complicated for me. I just like pineapple. So it's good.
Gotcha. First concert.
Jeez, oh Pete. Sticks.
Ooh, okay.
You gotta realize I'm quite old.
I know, but still.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I am a diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and they play Renegade before start every fourth quarter. So that's on every play up. That's up every workout playlist, every jack up song I need. I play Renegade, and once that last semi-chorus hits, I'm so ready to live a me-sized hole through some walls. Let me tell you.
How about even older than that, and going back to Light Up and those Light Up Everybody? See, Renegade was top 40s.
Yeah.
And we were Sticks before that. That was when they were lesser known.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, my brother was really into music, and he's older, so whatever he listened to, I had to.
Gotcha. Go-to comfort food.
Vanilla lattes. One a day.
One a day.
Well, I try to hold back, but sometimes it's one a day.
Easy enough. If money were no object, what would be the one place you want to travel to?
Boy, that's hard. My wife and I have been very blessed to be able to travel a lot of places and enjoy it. And we love diving in the Caribbean. We love going to the mountains. Alaska.
All right.
So, and hopefully if all our plans work out, it'll be a year and a half and we'll be there. So that's in our planning stages right now.
Right on. Last thing I want to talk to you about, because I know McLain dropped this nugget on me yesterday. If I remember correctly, your dad used to work for the News Advocate, correct?
Yes.
What did he do here?
It's funny, he just passed away just over a year ago, and we had a little family meeting afterwards. And I brought that up, that I remember, it was before I was in school even, so I had to be 4. My mom brought me down here to, I don't know, either pick Dad up for lunch or, pick him up from work or whatever. And I remember walking down the steps, and there were old rickety wooden steps into a basement, and there was lights hanging kind of like from extension cords almost. And I brought that up, and my sister goes, I had totally forgot. So I guess my memory was at least kind of close to that. And she said that he worked in advertising, either worked in advertising first and then went downstairs into the printing, or it was the other way around. He was in printing and then went into advertising, because one paid a few cents more an hour than the other did.
Yeah.
So he was, hey, there was 4 of us. He had to feed us all. So, but yeah, he was in advertising for a while, and he was also downstairs in like printing of some sort. I remember seeing the paper rollers going and stuff. But,
Oh, wow.
yeah, that was a long time ago, man.
Yeah, paper rollers in this building, that's took out for a couple of years, unfortunately. But
Yeah, it was down some old rickety wooden steps and wooden handrail. I remember that and stuff. And at his funeral, there was a fella that came up to us that actually worked here with him, and I thought that was pretty cool. So, yeah, so he was here.
man, this world is so small yet so big. I love it so much.
I totally agree.
I love it. Well, Curt, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Very welcome. I enjoyed it.
All right, so big thanks to Mr. Curt Mathieu for coming on and talking to someone back on the ski team with us. Had a fun little talk to them once we stopped recording, and man, fun guy to talk to off the record, my goodness. But joining me now over the Manistee News Advocate satellite, aka Zoom, is Mr. McLain Moberg, our sports editor. McLain, how are we doing this wonderful Wednesday?
Good man. I'm ready to be back in the office come here next week and get things rolling. But until then, just trying to do things from home as best I can. You know how it is.
Yeah, I got you. So, 38-35 final score, Chiefs, Eagles. Man, what a game.
It is the best Super Bowl probably maybe I've ever seen, maybe that I can ever remember. I think the only thing that comes close is, as a kid, the excitement of even as a kid, I wasn't a Patriots fan, so just the excitement that went into the New York Football Giants unseating the undefeated, Brady's Patriots and stuff like that. That's probably the closest feeling I had to it, watching it. But it's just a shame that, at the end there, things had to go a particular way with the referees. I know some people are upset about that call. To me, what it is you're one of two people, in my opinion. Was that holding? Technically, yeah. But do you call that call in that situation? I guess, because you're either the guy that says it doesn't matter if it's the first quarter or if there's 30 seconds left in the game. If there's a flag to be thrown, you throw the flag, right? Or you're the guy that says, situationally, is there something that I could let go? And I think that was maybe something you could have let go, but is what it is. It happens.
Yeah, for those who keep complaining about that holding call in the fourth quarter, I want to use swear words, but I won't because we're a family-friendly podcast. Look, James Bradbury, corner for Philadelphia, committed holding, admitted, yeah, I held him. Even guys from Philadelphia's roster said, hey, we should have played better. There's so many other moments in that game that could have gone the other way. And they're right. I mean, we talked about how great was Philly's pass rush going to this game. They broke the 85 Bears record for season sacks.
Yep.
And they did what against Kansas City's offensive line with all the depth and all the talent?
I know.
Big-ass goose egg. Big old goose egg. The rushing attack had 115 yards. But the combination of Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, and Miles Sanders had 17 carries, 45 yards. Can't be the good team
on one call, of course, but it just people naturally get upset. I think, Mitch, when the conspiracy theorists want to come out of the woodwork and say, the NFL wants to elevate the Kansas City Chiefs into the next dynasty, and so let's just hand, Patrick Mahomes the reins to the Super Bowl here on that call. And I guess you're either a person that believes that certain guys get calls or don't get calls. And I mean, I am a believer that certain guys get calls and certain teams get calls. And but you got to find a way to rise above that, because I'm also an opinion of that. Like when the Lions blew that playoff game, for instance, against the Dallas Cowboys years ago, which people are probably still hurting over. what people fail to remember is that with 2.5 minutes left, Matt Stafford still did get the ball back, and they didn't score. And so does that call really, I guess, hurt you in the way that you think it does? The guy did have a chance. Here, though, Jalen Hurts doesn't get a chance, and I think that's what people are upset about, that the Chiefs were going to score right there anyways, and who knows? Who knows?
For those who want to say one play changed the game, go back to the second quarter when Philly was up 14-7 and driving. Hurts fumbles, scoop and score back the other way. If that turnover doesn't happen, it's 21-7 Philly, 14-point lead, momentum going all your way. That game's different. But instead, it's a 14-14 tie. Mahomes walks in with a manageable 10-point deficit, and Philly musters only one touchdown in the second half.
The Eagles should have won that game, but they didn't, and that's just the way it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I picked the Chiefs, so I'm not upset about it. But yeah, it was a great game, and no, one call does not change the game. Shout out Michigan fans who are still complaining about Aiden Hutchinson's phantom touchdown. But one call doesn't change the game. It's just the truth. But it can certainly help one team or another at a particularly critical moment.
Yeah, big question I want to ask, though. What happens to Philadelphia from here? Because both of their coordinators are gone to Indy and Arizona. A lot of the depth pieces he had with the D-line, the guys like Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph, Robert Quinn, probably not coming back. Fletcher Cox is a big fair question mark with the cap space. The O-line's kind of beat up. Who knows if Jason Kelce comes back another year? Who knows how bad Lane Johnson is hurt, how bad the surgery's going to have to be, whether he wants to come back or not. I mean, what do you do now at running back? I mean, just where do you think Philadelphia goes from here?
Yeah, I think anybody that's kind of looked into it can realize that maybe Philly's cap is an interesting situation with certain guys that maybe are coming back and expiring deals and certain guys that want to get paid. If I remember correctly, I do believe that guys like Kelce and Fletcher Cox are up for contracts. And those guys are going to want to get paid, even though they are a little bit later into their careers and whatnot, and they're also superstars for the Philadelphia Eagles. And so, we'll have to see what they do there. But I would like to kind of sit back and see what the draft looks like, see what the offseason looks like for the Philadelphia Eagles, and then kind of make my final verdict. But when you feel like a team is maybe going to get gutted and there's some contract issues, are they going to be back in the Super Bowl next year? I mean, who knows? Nobody thought that the Bengals were going to get close again after a year that they did. People kind of wrote them off, said it was a Cinderella story. Then they had a rough start to the season, and people were like, see, that was just a magical run. And then they were right there in the AFC Championship game. So really, you don't know. I mean, the Eagles could be back, but it's going to be a tougher challenge than I think it was this year.
So for me, I took a look at that schedule back at like week 3, week 4, what they had. It's like they're going to cakewalk their way at least the NFC title game. And they kind of did. And then, I mean, look, let's just be honest here. If Brock Purdy doesn't have his UCL stabbed with too many pieces in the first series, I mean, that game probably goes differently. But, Philadelphia got mushed in the mouth the first time all year since probably that Washington game that was really, really weird. But if I'm Philadelphia and I look at what I have, with that New Orleans first-round pick, it's my hot take for the week, you got to consider Bijan Robinson out Texas at 10. I mean, I get it. It's a running back. You don't want to spend that kind of draft capital of running back in this modern day and age. But when you look at this draft class and you look at what Philadelphia needs and has needed since LaShawn McCoy went to Buffalo, Bijan Robinson is one of those, probably the best running back prospect to come out since Saquon Barkley. And I think a guy, and also too, when you look at this draft class, if you look at the offensive pieces outside of quarterback, who is that first guy, the best talent off the board? I think it's a strong case. It's either Bijan Robinson, Peter Skoronski, or Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame. There's not a wideout in this class I think is worthy of a top 10 pick. I think Bijan Robinson is a guy that is probably going to be that first offensive skill player off the board. So, if I'm Philly and I could throw out Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Bijan Robinson, I'm pretty happy on offense at least, and then see what you can do on defense.
Well, Philadelphia does love their running backs, so I will say that. Clearly, they run 3 of them somehow, which is not easy to do as an offensive coordinator or a head coach to figure out how to game plan 3 guys. But it'll be interesting to see if they take him or another running back and whatnot, and how they feel like they need to reload this team. And and where they're going to go. Yeah, I would like to say, Mitch, late in that game, obviously you look at it and it's a close game, it's a tie game, and you have Kansas City driving on that last drive and whatnot. And I just think our analysis, last week sort of kicked in there. Yeah, I felt that the experience of an Andy Reid, of a Patrick Mahomes, of a couple of guys that had been there before and had won it before, and also lost it before, would come and rise above the Philadelphia Eagles. And in that final 2 minutes, it felt like that experience took over. It felt like that skill set took over, and Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, he cements himself as a first ballot Hall of Famer with this Super Bowl, and his career is only going to continue to go up from here.
Yeah, but Kansas City got the ball up that last drive. I think we both knew it was game over. We knew it was over. Cool, Philadelphia tied it up, but you give Mahomes 4.5 minutes to march down to at least get 3 and eat some clock when they couldn't cover Travis Kelce, and then Juju Smith-Schuster gets open, and then Isaiah Pacheco was moving a million mile an hour in the hole and breaking through. So,
how about Isaiah Pacheco? Shout out to Isaiah Pacheco from Rutgers, I believe, and just a really tough, hard-nosed football player. He was a late-round draft pick, if I'm not mistaken, Mitch. I believe he was really, really late. And for him to have the performance that he did, it's incredible. And I do believe he was a Rutgers football player. I remember him playing against Michigan State a couple of times. But yeah, just shout out to him. He was a real late draft pick, and that's always fun to see a guy have success.
Absolutely. So let's break it down to one last thing. I'll go first this week. The prospect I want to talk about today is a kid out of Iowa. His name is Lucas Van Ness. 6'5", 269-pound edge player. Now, the fun thing about this kid, he never started a game for Iowa, but he's projected to be a first-round talent. So, what does he do well? Well, for a guy who's 6'5", 269, strong, physical, hands and feet move consistently between whistle to whistle. You can put him potentially on the edge as a 6-tech or maybe as a 3-tech if you beef him up a little bit. I love to see him get to about 280 pounds. To me, that's a guy who could be like an Aaron Catman or Aaron Smith type, like he was for Green Bay or Pittsburgh back in the day. I think he might need a little time to really get to that Pro Bowl ceiling, but hey, TJ Watt didn't go pop off till year 3. A lot of guys don't pop off till year 3. So, yeah, keep your eyes up on Lucas Van Ness. That's a guy that's probably going to be a first-round pick. Outside Will Anderson Jr. and Jalen Carter, that could be a guy who could be pretty high up for edge rushers or defensive line presence. So keep your eyes on Lucas Van Ness. Mr. Moberg, give me the floor.
Yeah, Mitch, I was happy to hear you go first this week because I don't have a sports take. It's going to be a bit of a serious one last thing. And, I hope people stick around for this part of the episode because I do think it needs to be said. And I've been jumbling this around in my brain for the past 2 days and, thinking about should I write a column, and I felt, I'm just going to go on the podcast and talk about it for a couple of minutes. But, the Michigan State school shooting, a place where I went to school, a place where I grew up. I grew up 30 minutes out of town in a small place called Wakusta, which is not a real place because it's a Grand Ledge address. But they call themselves Wakusta. It's a very, very small town. It's about a 25-minute drive from there to Spartan Stadium, a drive I've made, countless times with my dad. And, to even try to remember the first time I stepped foot on campus would probably not be able to do it justice without talking to him because I've been there so often and as a toddler. And to have somebody, come into a place where, you have called home and, you've lived even. Your daughter was born in that area. My daughter Blair, my wife, was pregnant during the pandemic while we lived in the heart of East Lansing. It's just devastating. It was an absolute tragedy, and those 3 kids that lost their lives. They were kids. They couldn't even go to the bar and order a beer, Mitch. They were 20 years old. They were 19 years old, and they were just getting their lives started. And it's just devastating. And hopefully something changes. And I read a stat, and I have no idea if it's true, so don't hold me to it. But I was kind of scrolling through, and they said an alarming number that already through February 15th, there's been 50-plus mass shootings in the United States in 2023. And that's just I don't know when it's going to stop. I don't know what it's going to take. I know there are a lot of differing arguments, and I'm not here to get into that. I'm just here to talk about, those victims' families and everything that they're probably going through right now, and every student on that campus, including, probably a few local to here, as we know. We wrote a story on a local student as well here, that experienced that situation. And it's just devastating for all parties involved. I hope the community can find a way to come together, and I hope the country can find a way to rise above this and figure out a way to put an end to this. Why we are the only country that seems to have this happen constantly and seems to turn the other cheek is, I just don't understand it. I just don't understand it. My daughter's got to go to school one day, and I don't really know what is going to happen with that. Elementary schools aren't even safe. I mean, I can't even put it into words. But yeah, parents out there, go home, hug your children, kiss your children, tell them you love them, and you have to have tough conversations with them, because this is the reality of the world, and that is a very difficult situation that I don't even want to really think about right now, because it's a few years away, but it's one that I'm going to have with my daughter, and it's a really, really devastating reality. So that's where I'm going to leave us today.
I think it's probably a good time to leave it here. So to wrap this up, this is episode 5 of Sports Advocates. Until next time, folks, keep your stick in the ice.